In the hallowed halls of the Senate Judiciary Committee, where the fate of America's judicial future hung in the balance, a storm was brewing that no one saw coming. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes a revelation capable of toppling empires built on sand. Senator Josh Hawley, the self-proclaimed intellectual powerhouse of the Republican Party, sat poised like a predator, his Yale Law School diploma an invisible crown atop his head. But as the clock ticked past the 2-hour mark of the hearing on judicial qualifications, something shifted. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, an expert witness invited to scrutinize several conservative nominees, took her seat. Hawley leaned forward, his trademark smirk curling at the edges of his lips, a smirk that whispered of impending demolition. Little did he know, this moment would unravel the very fabric of his carefully woven facade, exposing a web of lies that stretched back decades. The nation watched, unaware that they were about to witness the spectacular fall of a man who dared to mock another's education while his own was a house of cards. The hearing had begun routinely enough, with senators grilling nominees on their interpretations of constitutional law, their stances on precedent, and their visions for justice. Hawley, ever the showman, had been in his element, quoting obscure legal theorists and dropping references to his time at Stanford and Yale as if they were holy scriptures. His voice, laced with that Ivy League Polish, cut through the room like a scalpel. He had built his career on this image, the brilliant conservative mind, the one who could outthink liberals and rally the base with intellectual firepower. But when Crockett appeared, her presence a quiet force amid the political theater, Hawley saw his chance. She was there to question the nominee's qualifications, drawing on her own legal expertise. To Hawley, she represented everything he loved to dismantle, someone from a lesser institution, a public law school no less, daring to weigh in on matters he deemed reserved for the elite. Leaning back in his leather chair, Hawley adjusted his microphone, his eyes gleaming with predatory delight. "Congresswoman Crockett," he drawled, his tone dripping with condescension honed from years in exclusive academic circles. "I find it rather amusing that someone with a law degree from the University of Houston Public Law Center thinks she can evaluate judicial excellence." The room stayed, a few chuckles rippling from his Republican colleagues. He pressed on, his smirk widening as he savored the moment. Perhaps those of us who attended actual elite institutions, real centers of legal scholarship like Stanford and Yale, should handle questions of constitutional interpretation and judicial fitness. I mean, Houston, was that even ranked in the top 100 law schools when you attended? Maybe you should leave these complex legal matters to those of us with proper legal pedigrees, those of us who studied under federal judges rather than, what do they call them at state schools, practitioners. The silence that followed was electric, charged with discomfort. Democrats exchanged appalled glances, while Republicans shifted uneasily, their laughter fading into nervous coughs. Hawley, reveling in what he believed was a masterful takedown, adjusted his tie, a subtle flex of superiority, and waited for Crockett's response. He expected flustered indignation, perhaps a defensive retort that would only underscore his point. But Crockett didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her briefcase with deliberate calm, pulling out a folder that seemed to pulse with unspoken power. The label, bold and unmistakable, caught the camera's glare, wholly academic fraud. She placed it on the table, the soft thud echoing like a gavel in the hushed chamber. No rush, no anger, just the precision of someone about to dismantle a myth. "Senator Hawley," Crockett began, her voice steady and devoid of the emotion his attack might have provoked, "since you brought up legal education and the importance of where one earned their degree, I think this committee and the American people should know the truth about your actual academic record." Hawley's smirk faltered, a flicker of confusion crossing his features. "Not the carefully crafted biography you've been promoting for years, but the real one. The one that includes the fact that you didn't actually write the Yale Law Review article that launched your career. The one that shows you plagiarized substantial portions of your Stanford thesis. The one that reveals you've been lying about your class rank for 20 years. And most importantly, the one that proves you've been using fraudulent academic credentials to question the qualifications of others while hiding your own academic misconduct." The transformation was instantaneous. Hawley's face, captured in high definition by every network camera, crumbled from smug confidence to wide-eyed shock. His hand trembled as he reached for his water glass, only to knock it over, the spill spreading like a metaphor for his unraveling control. He fumbled for napkins, his composed facade shattering into fragments. The room, moments ago alive with Hawley's barbs, fell into a stunned void, broken only by his labored breathing amplified through the microphone. This was no ordinary political skirmish. This was the beginning of an exposure that would redefine careers and spark a national reckoning. Months earlier, Crockett's team had foreseen this ambush. Knowing Hawley's penchant for wielding his Ivy League credentials like a club, they dug into opposition research. What started as standard vetting unearthed a goldmine of deceit. Collaborating with academic integrity advocates, disgruntled former classmates weary of Hawley's hypocrisy, and a key whistleblower from Yale's administrative office, they pieced together a dossier of damning evidence. Hawley's image as a thinking man's populist, graduating from Stanford, excelling at Yale, clerking for Chief Justice John Roberts, professing constitutional law, was a meticulously curated illusion. In reality, his path was paved with privilege, plagiarism, and payoffs, never truly vetted because elite institutions were assumed infallible. Hawley's Stanford admission, not merit-based, but bought through his father's banking connections and hefty donations. His Yale success, a cocktail of ghostwritten papers, copied work, and grade inflation for the politically connected. The crown jewel of his fraud, that seminal Yale Law Review article on religious liberty, which catapulted him to a Supreme Court clerkship. It wasn't his brilliance on display. It was Thomas Chen's, a talented but cash-strapped classmate paid $5,000 to pen the entire piece. Chen had preserved drafts, emails, and even audio recordings of their dealings, lying dormant until Hawley's political sanctimony pushed him to whistleblow. Deeper digging revealed Hawley had orchestrated an academic fraud ring at Yale, brokering deals where affluent students bought essays, briefs, and exam answers from needy peers. He took cuts from transactions totaling over $80,000, all while using the system to buoy his own grades. 17 participants were identified, their testimonies painting a picture of systemic cheating enabled by institutional blind eyes turned for the sake of reputation and donations. As Crockett opened her folder in the hearing, the first document hit the screens, Hawley's authentic Stanford transcript, clawed from obscurity via Freedom of Information Act request. "This is Senator Hawley's actual undergraduate transcript from Stanford," she announced neutrally. Despite his claims of graduating Phi Beta Kappa with highest honors, his GPA was a mediocre 3.1. No honors, no prizes, and his senior thesis was flagged for 40% plagiarism. Next came the internal report. An investigation dropped after a $500,000 donation from Hawley's father, timed suspiciously post-suspension. Hawley stammered, "These are fabricated documents, a smear campaign." But his voice cracked, conviction absent. Crockett countered with an affidavit from Professor James Morrison, his thesis advisor. "I knew the work was plagiarized. I was pressured to approve it. I've carried this guilt for 20 years. The room descended into chaos. Allies distanced themselves. Whispers buzzed. But Crockett was unrelenting, her revelations peeling back layers of deception. This was just the opening act in a drama that would expose not just one man's fraud, but the rotten America's elite educational underbelly. As the Senate Judiciary Committee room teetered on the edge of pandemonium, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett pressed forward, her composure stark contrast to Senator Josh Hawley's unraveling poise. The folder labeled Hawley Academic Fraud lay open like a Pandora's box, its contents spilling forth truths that threatened to upend the senator's entire legacy. Hawley's face, now a mask of barely contained panic, reflected the gravity of the moment. He had weaponized a supposed intellectual superiority for years, but now, under the glaring lights of scrutiny, the facade was cracking. Crockett, undeterred by the rising murmurs, pulled out the next set of documents, each one a nail in the coffin of Hawley's credibility. The nation, glued to their screens, sensed that this was no mere political spat. This was the exposure of a systemic deception that had propelled the fraud into the holes of power. Shifting seamlessly to Hawley's Yale chapter, Crockett held up papers bearing the prestigious law school seal. "Now, let's discuss your time at Yale Law School, Senator Hawley," she said, her tone still professionally detached, though the weight of her words hung heavy. "Your famous law review article on religious liberty, the one you cited hundreds of times as evidence of your constitutional expertise, the one that secured your Supreme Court clerkship." She paused, letting the anticipation build. then revealed the bombshell, an affidavit from Thomas Chen. He testifies that he wrote that entire article for you in exchange for $5,000. He had provided original drafts, email exchanges discussing the arrangement, and bank records showing the payment. The screens lit up with the evidence. An email from Hawley to Chen reading, "Make it brilliant enough to get me a federal clerkship. There's a bonus in it for you. Include enough originalist theory to appeal to conservative judges." Attached was a file labeled First Draft, Hawley Religious Liberty article. Metadata confirming Chen's authorship, untouched by Hawley before submission. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Reporters' fingers flew across keyboards. Hawley, his earliest smirk a distant memory, muttered denials, but they rang hollow against the concrete proof. But Crockett wasn't done. She delved into the heart of the scandal, Hawley's academic fraud ring at Yale. This scheme, she explained, producing spreadsheets and testimonies, was a sophisticated operation where wealthy students purchased essays, case briefs, and exam answers from struggling peers. Senator Hawley acted as a broker, taking commissions on every transaction. The documents detailed a price list: constitutional law exam answers for $3,000, law review notes for $5,000, moot court briefs for $2,000. Payments funneled through accounts Hawley controlled, totaling over $80,000. 17 students had come forward, their affidavits painting a vivid picture of exploitation enabled by elite privilege. A confidential Yale report sealed the narrative, an investigation into what the Academic Integrity Committee dubbed an essay mill. It confirmed the scheme but noted its abrupt termination when Hawley threatened to expose similar practices among other connected students. Yale, prioritizing its image, buried the file, but not deep enough. Crockett's team, armed with whistleblower access, had exhumed it. The implications rippled outward. Hawley's Supreme Court clerkship application, riddled with inflated class ranks and fabricated achievements, now stood invalidated. His professorship at the University of Missouri, secured via the ghostwritten article, netting him over $200,000 annually for 6 years, a staggering $1.2 million in fraudulent earnings. Board positions, speaking fees, book advances, all tallied over $5 million, obtained under false pretenses. "This isn't just academic dishonesty," Crockett declared. "This is criminal fraud." Hawley's defense crumbled further as Crockett revealed more. He had failed the Missouri bar exam twice before passing on his third try, a fact concealed by misleading claims. His entire career trajectory, from clerk to senator, was built on this house of lies. Turning the spotlight inward, Crockett defended her own record. "Let me be clear about my actual academic achievements," she said, displaying her transcripts. "I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Houston Law Center with a 3.96 GPA. I was editor-in-chief of the Law Review, where I wrote my own articles. I passed the Texas bar on my first attempt in the 96th percentile. I've argued 17 federal cases, winning 14. Every achievement was mine, earned, not bought." The contrast was damning. Hawley, the Ivy League impostor, versus Crockett, the authentic public school success. "You mocked my education from Houston," she continued. "But Houston taught me integrity over prestige, justice over connections, real excellence over purchased credentials. Using privilege to belittle honest achievements marks you as a true impostor." As chaos erupted, committee members shouting, reporters scrambling, Crockett unveiled the final blow, a letter from Yale's dean initiating degree revocation proceedings, with Stanford following suit. The Missouri bar launched an investigation into his license. Hawley's attorney whispered urgently, but the senator sat frozen, his world collapsing. In the immediate aftermath, the political fallout was swift. Republican allies like Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton distanced themselves, Cruz claiming long-held suspicions, Cotton withdrawing co-sponsorships. The Republican Study Committee stripped Hawley of leadership roles. Calls for resignation echoed, even from within his party. Yale and Stanford confirmed investigations. The University of Missouri sought salary recovery. The Supreme Court reviewed clerkships potentially tainted by fraud. The scandal's reach extended to criminal realms. Federal prosecutors eyed false statements on Senate disclosures and security clearances, each a felony. The fraud ring's network implicated other politicians and judges, sparking retirements and probes. Hawley's exposure had cracked open a vault of elite deceit. Culturally, the incident ignited debates on educational elitism. Universities tightened plagiarism checks. The ABA mandated credential verifications. Public schools gained prestige as symbols of genuine merit. For Crockett, the moment catapulted her to hero status. Her Hawley academic fraud folded an iconic emblem of accountability. Yet, as the hearing recessed amid uproar, the full storm was just beginning. Hawley's desperate invocation of the Fifth Amendment only amplified his guilt, setting the stage for indictments and a trial that would lay bare even more. 6 months after the seismic Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that exposed Senator Josh Hawley's academic fraud, the fallout had metastasized into a full-blown legal reckoning. The once rising star of conservative politics, who had mocked Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's education only to have his own fraudulent credentials dissected in real time, now faced the cold machinery of justice. The indictment, unsealed in a federal courthouse, charged Hawley with 17 counts: fraud, conspiracy, false statements, and more. Prosecutors painted a portrait of a man who had parlayed deceit into a multi-million-dollar empire, undermining the pillars of American education and governance. As Hawley entered the courtroom, his former swagger replaced by a gaunt, defeated demeanor, the trial promised to be a spectacle, a cautionary tale of hubris meeting its match. The proceedings opened with a bang, the prosecution laying out the case methodically, echoing Crockett's hearing revelations but amplified with fresh evidence. Lead prosecutor Elena Ramirez began. This is not merely a story of youthful indiscretion. This is a calculated, decades-long scheme where the defendant exploited privilege to fabricate a persona of intellectual superiority, defrauding institutions, employers, and the American public. Witnesses streamed in. Thomas Chen, the ghostwriter, recounting the $5,000 deal with emails and draft in hand. Hawley didn't write a word, Chen testified. He was too busy networking. Former Yale classmates detailed the fraud ring, describing secret meetings where Hawley brokered deals. One, a now successful attorney, admitted paying $4,000 for an exam answer, saying Josh was a middleman. He made it seem normal in that cutthroat environment. Spreadsheets projected on courtroom screens showed the financial web, over $100,000 in commissions, funneled through disguised accounts. Professors testified too. Stanford's James Morrison reiterated administrative pressure to overlook plagiarism after the $500,000 donation. A Yale dean confirmed the Barrett investigation, admitting institutional complicity to protect donors. Financial experts quantified the damage. Hawley's Missouri professorship salary, $1.2 million. Book advances, $750,000. Speaking fees, $2.5 million. Board compensations, $3 million, totaling over $15 million obtained via false credentials. Every dollar was tainted, an accountant declared. False statements on federal forms, including Senate ethics disclosures, added wire and mail fraud charges. The conspiracy count tied in the ring's participants, some flipping for leniency. Hawley's defense was feeble. His lawyers argued the evidence was politically motivated hearsay, but cross-examinations dismantled this. When Hawley took the stand, a risky move, he claimed youthful exaggeration, denying outright fraud. But under grilling, he cracked, I may have received help, but who doesn't in law school? The jury wasn't buying it. His invocation of the Fifth during the hearing was replayed, underscoring evasion. The trial unearthed broader scandals. Investigations revealed similar schemes at other Ivys, implicating 2 federal judges who retired abruptly and 3 senators caught inflating resumes. One, a Democrat, faced ethics probes. A Republican judge's rulings were scrutinized. Hawley's case became a catalyst, exposing how wealth insulated the elite from accountability. Crockett, called as a witness, recounted the hearing with poise. He mocked my Houston degree while hiding his plagiarism. This trial vindicates not just me, but everyone dismissed for lacking prestige. Her testimony humanized the case, contrasting her genuine achievements against Hawley's fabrications. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all counts. The courtroom buzzed as the foreman read the charges. Hawley, head bowed, showed no reaction. Resignation had set in. Sentencing followed weeks later. Judge Harlan Thorpe, a no-nonsense veteran, delivered a stern lecture. You corrupted education's integrity, facilitated others' deceit, and abused public trust. This sentence must deter such fraud. 8 years in federal prison, full restitution of $15 million, and permanent disbarment. Yale and Stanford had already revoked his degrees, a historic first for a senator. Post-trial, Hawley's life imploded further. His book deal evaporated, advance reclaimed. Speaking gigs vanished, boards ousted him. His PAC dissolved amid donor flight. Staff resigned en masse, branding him toxic. Prison loomed, but appeals dragged on, funded by dwindling family wealth. The scandal's ripple effects transformed institutions. Universities mandated AI plagiarism detectors and anonymous reporting systems. Law reviews required originality affidavits. The ABA overhauled bar admissions, demanding verified transcripts. Public universities saw application surges, as Hawley syndrome stigmatized unowned elite degrees. Employers shifted focus to skills over alma maters. Politically, new laws emerged, the Academic Integrity and Public Service Act, requiring verified credentials for federal candidates. Debates on elitism intensified, with Crockett leading reforms. Her profile soared. She authored a bestseller on meritocracy, earned, not bought, donating proceeds of public education scholarships. Hawley's story became folklore, a warning against hypocrisy. Memes of his spilled water and Crockett's folder proliferated. Conservative media, once laudatory, pivoted, a betrayal of principles. Liberals hailed it as justice served. Yet, as Hawley awaited transfer to prison, whispers of deeper conspiracies lingered. Had his father's donations bought more than silence? Were other power brokers next? The trial closed one chapter, but the quest for transparency pressed on, ensuring no one could hide behind fraudulent prestige again. In the wake of Senator Josh Hawley's conviction, the scandal that began with a smug smirk in a Senate hearing evolved into a cultural earthquake, shaking the foundations of American education, politics, and society. What started as a personal takedown by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett had ballooned into a nationwide dialogue on privilege, merit, and the myths of elitism. Hawley, now inmate number 04789-045 in a federal penitentiary, served as the unwilling poster child for reform. His fall from grace, fueled by plagiarism, ghostwriting, and an academic fraud ring, forced institutions to confront uncomfortable truths. That prestige often masked corruption, and genuine achievement thrived beyond ivy walls. As the dust settled, the Hawley effect permeated every corner of public life, sparking changes that promise a more equitable future. Education bore the brunt of the transformation. Universities, stung by revelations of buried investigations and donor influence, implemented sweeping anti-fraud measures. Stanford and Yale, ground zero for Hawley's deceptions, led the charge. They established independent oversight boards to review past plagiarism cases, revoking degrees in over 50 instances tied to similar schemes. AI-powered plagiarism detection became mandatory for all submissions, with algorithms scanning not just text but metadata for authorship anomalies. Anonymous whistleblower hotlines proliferated, empowering students like Thomas Chen to report without fear. Public universities, long overshadowed by elite counterparts, experienced a renaissance. Applications to schools like the University of Houston surged by 35%, as prospective students sought environments valuing earned excellence over connections. Crockett's alma mater capitalized, launching the Integrity Initiative, scholarships for first-generation students, funded by donations inspired by her stand. Nationwide, curricula incorporated ethics modules on academic honesty, with case studies dissecting Hawley's fraud. Community colleges reported record enrollments, as the scandal debunked the notion that prestige equated to quality. The legal profession underwent its own purge. The American Bar Association, ABA, horrified by Hawley's bar exam failures and fraudulent license, mandated biometric verification for exams and required full academic audits for admission. Law reviews adopted strict protocols, signed affidavits of originality, peer-blind reviews, and public registries of submissions. Missouri's bar, which disbarred Hawley permanently, inspired other states to review licenses retroactively, uncovering 23 cases of credential inflation. Federal judges implicated in similar Ivy schemes faced ethics probes. 5 retired preemptively, their rulings under appeal. Politically, the scandal redrew battle lines. The Academic Integrity in Public Service Act, co-sponsored by Crockett and bipartisan allies, became law. It compelled all federal candidates, from senators to judges, to submit verified transcripts and undergo independent audits. Failure meant disqualification, with penalties for falsification mirroring Hawley's fraud charges. Campaign rhetoric shifted. Boasting Ivy credentials invited scrutiny as opponents demanded proof. Ted Cruz, once Hawley's peer, faced his own mini-scandal over exaggerated Harvard anecdotes, forcing a public apology. The Republican Party, reeling from association with Hawley, purged its intellectual wing. The study committee, which ousted him, created an ethics task force to vet members' backgrounds. Conservatives pivoted to merit-based populism, emphasizing self-made success over elite pedigrees. Democrats, buoyed by Crockett's heroism, amplified voices from public institutions with an eye for higher office. Bipartisan commissions investigated donor influence in academia, leading to caps on university contributions tied to admissions or investigations. Culturally, Hawley's exposure dismantled educational elitism. Media dissected the Ivy illusion, how wealth perpetuated inequality. Documentaries like Fraud in the Ivies streamed to millions, featuring Chen and Morrison. Social media hashtags like #NotBought trended, sharing stories of overlooked talents from state schools. Employers, from tech giants to law firms, revamp hiring. Blind resume reviews focus on skills, diminishing alma mater weight. A Fortune 500 survey showed 60% prioritizing demonstrated ability over degrees post-scandal. For Crockett, the aftermath was triumphant. Her book, Earned, Not Bought, topped charts, chronicling adhering and advocating reform. Proceeds funded legal aid for plagiarism victims. She keynoted commencements, inspiring graduates. Prestige as a label, integrity as a legacy. Her Hawley folder became symbolic, replicated in memes and merchandise. Yet, shadows lingered. Hawley's appeals dragged, alleging bias, but evidence held firm. Prison reports painted him isolated, penning a memoir of redemption, rejected by publishers. His family distanced themselves, his father's bank facing IRS audits over donations. The scandal's legacy? A more skeptical America, where credentials were earned, not assumed. Public discourse celebrated diverse paths to success, eroding barriers. As Crockett reflected in an interview, Hawley's smirk was his undoing, but it was our collective demand for truth that built something better. Years after Senator Josh Hawley's conviction, his name evokes not triumph but tragedy, a synonym for the perils of fabricated success. The man who once smirked at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's education from a pedestal of lies now fades into obscurity, his story a perpetual warning etched into American law. Yet, the scandal's true legacy endures not in his downfall, but in the resilient reforms at birth, fostering a society where merit trumps lineage. As new generations navigate education and politics, the Hawley effect remains a beacon, reminding all that integrity, once shattered, demands reconstruction. But even as progress marches on, whispers of unfinished business persist. How many more frauds lurk in the shadows of privilege? Hawley's post-prison life is a shadow of his former glory. Released after serving 6 years, good behavior shaved time, he attempted reinvention, a self-published memoir, Lessons from the Fall, peddled on fringe sites. It claimed victimhood, political witch hunt. Reviews panned it as unrepentant drivel. Speaking invitations dried up, conservative circles shunned him as a liability. He settled in obscurity, consulting anonymously for think tanks, his disbarment barring legal work. Family ties strained. His wife divorced amid the trial's revelations, leaving him isolated, a cautionary figure in ethics classes. Crockett's trajectory soared inversely. Elected to the Senate in a landslide, she championed education equity, authoring bills for free community college and anti-plagiarism tech grants. Her foundation, Merit Matters, supports underprivileged scholars, raising millions. Internationally recognized, she addressed the UN on integrity and governance, her hearing footage a staple in documentaries. That folder wasn't just about Hawley, she often says. It was about reclaiming truth for everyone dismissed by elitism. Institutional changes solidified. Ivies like Yale and Stanford post-revocations, diversified admissions, reducing legacy preferences by 50%. National databases track academic integrity violations, preventing cross-institution fraud. Public funding tied to transparency metrics boosted state schools, narrowing prestige gaps. The Arbaz reforms halve bar fraud cases, with annual audit standard. Politically, the Integrity Act evolved, extending to state offices. Scandals waned as verifications deterred fakers. Bipartisan alliances formed around meritocracy, bridging divides. Media scrutiny intensified. Investigative journalism on credentials became a beat, exposing minor frauds before they escalated. Culturally, the shift was profound. Films like the Smirk dramatized the hearing, winning Oscars. Literature explored elitism's pitfalls. Crockett's book inspired sequels. Social movements like #Real Achievers amplified diverse success stories, from trade workers to public school grads. Employers' DEI initiatives included credential equity, valuing experience over degrees. Yet, challenges remain. Echoes of Hawley's ring surface in new probes. A tech mogul's bought Harvard spot, a celebrity's ghostwritten thesis. Global parallels emerged. UK Oxford scandals, Asian exam mills, prompting international pacts on academic standards. Crockett's ongoing work targets these, advocating AI ethics to combat evolving cheats. In reflection, Hawley's hubris ignited a fire that purified systems. His mocking of Crockett backfired spectacularly, proving that truth, wielded with calm precision, conquers deception. As America moves forward, the lesson endures: build on rock, not sand, lest the tide of scrutiny wash it away. For those inspired by this tale of justice, subscribe and stay notified. More stories of accountability await.